Hello, hello, testing. Oh, wow. Hello, welcome. Welcome, welcome. Everyone, please get a seat. We have more seats in there. I do know that it's only just after 5:30, 5:50, so as people trickle in, grab seats. Thank you all for coming. I hope everyone's gotten some good food. There is so much, and we had a bit of a hiccup, and it was an ordeal, so please eat all of the food. Great. Well, I guess we'll kick into it then. I'm Kel. I'm the head of projects and community here at Startmate. Thanks. We did practice, and Mia asked if I wanted to practice getting heckled. Given it's a women's event, I didn't think that was necessary. I've never been heckled by women before, so yeah, thanks. Cheers. And I was reminded to use the clicker at the appropriate time, so I think that's it. Holly picked my headshot for me too, so thanks for that. Now, before we kick off, I would just like to acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the lands on which we are all gathering from today. That's the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and I would like to pay my respects to elders past and present. Now, let's kick into it. So, earlier this year, Australia experienced a national disaster, a genuine crisis for us as a nation. Sam Kerr tore her ACL. Now, given the giggles, I assume many know who Sam Kerr is, but for those who are new, she's the captain, or she was the captain of the Matildas, which is our national women's soccer team. She's also, to Sam Kerr. She's also one of the most recognized players in the world, male or female. And for those who have been following the news lately, she's been at the center of some news over the past few days, a queen. And I guess we won't get too into that now, but it's just another point that disadvantage goes beyond just gender. I'll get carried away. So the point is that Sam Kerr tore her ACL. Now, for those who don't know, that's about a 12-month recovery time. And what that meant was it put our chances of qualifying for the Olympics, in serious jeopardy. All because of this tiny little piece of tissue, about half the size of a postage stamp. So, fortunately, the Matildas got it done. We did qualify for the Olympics last week. Yes. Which is excellent, but the point stands. We're now going into the Olympics without our captain, without our best striker. So, unfortunately, it's actually not that uncommon, and it's not that surprising that Sam Kerr tore her ACL. Female soccer players have a 5% chance of tearing their ACL every year that they play. Now, statistically speaking, that just means she was due, which is a bit of a bummer. So this actually wouldn't be that devastating of an injury if there was only some more research around it. So why isn't there? We're spending billions of dollars, that's billions with a B, billions of dollars on male pattern baldness and Viagra, of which there is now a chewable kind. I'm sure we'll come up with grape and passion fruit next. So why are we only just looking at this career-ending injury for women? The problem is that this is mostly just happening to women. Female soccer players are up to 8 times more likely to tear an ACL than men. Bummer. So why does this matter? What is the point? Why am I talking about soccer on International Women's Day, other than that we love the Matildas? The point is that if we want to solve these sort of problems, we need women involved. We need women to solve women's problems, and we need women to solve the world's problems. A rising tide lifts all boats. So that's why we're here. Don't mind me, I have notes, I'm a little bit excited. So that's the point. Gender diversity isn't just a feel-good. It's not just a nice to have. Gender diversity is critical if we want to succeed, and statistics have proven that. The most gender diverse teams are 48% more likely to outperform the least gender diverse teams. Who wouldn't want their company to outperform by 48%? That is massive. So fortunately, Australia and New Zealand, this very room is chock full of clever, caring, ambitious, kind, hungry women who are keen to make this better future. So there's nothing we won't do to at least give them that opportunity. So that's why we're here, and that's why we're here today. That's why we're running such a fun little event. So about 4 years ago, we started a program. Holly, was I supposed to click a slide? Let's find out. No? Nope, I was not. So About 4 years ago, we started a program called the Women Fellowship. Actually, raise your hand if you are a Women Fellow here. Oh, nice, great. So about 4 years ago, we started the Women Fellowship, which is a program that helps women break into startups, find their dream job, their dream career, and break into startups. And over these last 4 years, we've helped hundreds of women land their dream jobs and break into startups. And to be honest, I'm really proud of that. But to be honest, that's not good enough. It's not good enough to just get women into jobs, into the startup world, when there are so many hurdles for women beyond that in their career. We know this because we're living through it. If we self-advocate, we're difficult. We face criticism that our male peers never would. We fail to get recognized in line with our male peers. If we make it to leadership, then we're the minority on boards and in leadership teams. If we point out the funding gap, we're ungrateful. We face harassment with inadequate channels to report it, or little action gets done. And if we complain about any of this, we'll get trolled for it on LinkedIn, which I'm looking forward to next week. Come at me. So we recognize that this isn't good enough, and we want to do something about it. It's not just enough to get women into startups. So we've been working behind the scenes for about the past 8 or so months on a solution to help women navigate these other hurdles. We've been working on an overarching initiative to address gender diversity in startups, and we're calling it, ready for this, Holly? Ladymates. Got that. Ladymates isn't just one solution to one problem, but an overarching initiative to address all the hurdles that women are facing in their career journey. So we'll continue helping women break into the startup world via the Women Fellowship. We're rolling out a new program as of next week to help women in leadership. We're going to support women who are already working in startups. We'll continue helping women who are in our founder programs. And we will also be looking in the very near future, back half of the year, to roll out support systems for women who are navigating motherhood, who are young women navigating their early career, what they want to be when they grow up, women in investing, and so on. So, we also recognize this is a massive problem, and we are not going to address it overnight, and we are going to make mistakes, and we are going to learn from them. But the important thing is that we do something. The important thing is that we take action and do something. So, if you resonate with anything I've said, if you feel like you're pushing a boulder uphill, or you're looking at your career and you feel like it's unclear, or it's full of roadblocks and hurdles, check out what we're doing with Ladymates. Is this, yep, sick, nice. We've put a QR code on the bingo cards, it's on the screen, and we'll send out info after the event. So scan that QR code if you want to hear more about what we're doing. But what's also important is that we're building this with you and for you. So if you have feedback, advice, experiences, we just recognize that there's so many different parts of disadvantage other than just being a woman. So if you want to share these experiences, please do. We want to build the best solutions, and so we want to build them with you. Now, before I wrap up tonight, I have 2 asks for you all. The first is to be open. Be open to new learnings, pushing yourself outside your comfort zone, challenging yourself. Be open to new connections. You might just make a friend or an ally in your career. And secondly, be kind. Be kind to your fellow women, to each other, and most importantly, be kind to yourself. It is hard out there, and we are all just doing the best we can. So, on that note, I will leave it there and pass it over to my wonderful colleague, Mia, who will be kicking off the panel. Thank you so much.
Can people hear me? All right. Okay. Thank you, Kel. Hi, everyone. I'm Mia, and I run the Women Fellowship at Startmate. If anyone wants to chat career pivots, feel free to come find me after. Applications for the next program are still open for another week. So, when Vinisha, Doone, and I were chatting about what we wanted this panel to be, Vinisha actually sent me a quote, which I want to share an abbreviated version of with all of you. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. Just last week, we saw the publication of Australia's gender pay data. Correct response. Only 26% of people working in the tech sector are women, and that's across the whole sector. The stats are so much worse when we then look at leadership. It's clearer than ever that we need more women in leadership, more women advocating for themselves and advocating for each other. And so today I'm so excited to be joined by two incredible women. Tonight will be about hearing stories and advice, lifting ourselves and lifting each other up, and finding community. So I'm joined by Doone and Vinisha, founder and host of the Female Startup Club, and Vinisha Rathod, managing director of P3 Studio. Can we give them a quick round of applause? Now, so often as women, we fall into the trap of playing small about our successes and our achievements. We're not here to do that. We want to do things differently tonight. So by way of introduction, and Doone, I'll start with you, what are 3 really impressive things about yourself that you're really proud of?
Hello, everyone. I'm Doone. I'm the founder of Female Startup Club. Love a highlights reel. Let me give you 3. If you don't know me or you haven't heard of Female Startup Club or our story before, I started the podcast, or started focusing on the podcast rather, back in 2020 from the bedroom floor. It started from very humble beginnings, and I had no grand plans and no idea what I was doing. And we've grown the show to being one of the top, well, we're in the top 0.5% of all podcasts globally. Thank you. We have more than 600 episodes with brilliant, amazing, consumer-facing female founders who are doing 7, 8, and 9 figures in annual revenue every year. Amazing. We've had 2 doing more than 100 million revenue in a year. Love that for them. And so for me, you know, as point number 1 for the highlight reel, I know I'm rambling a little bit here, but it's crazy to me, and I pinch myself every day, that, you know, someone who is actually quite internally shy and nervous and awkward was able to build this career and build this business doing something that I love so much through like chatting and conversation, and having this mission of, you know, celebrating and championing women who want to build wealth through the lens of business and who want to be financially independent from a partner. So that's number 1. Number 2, where am I? Number 2. Okay, so about 18 months ago, I got really interested in the funding gap and trying to understand the systemic issues that we face from, you know, early kind of childhood right through to school, university, career, workplace, startups, the ecosystem. And even though I knew that I could have a broad impact and kind of that mass reach through education and knowledge sharing with the show and through our channels, I also realized that I could have a very one-to-one direct impact through directly angel investing into female-founded companies. So very proud to say I've invested in 2 companies, one in Australia, Pleasant State, Sunny Coast brand, if you know Amy and Sean, and one in the US called The Renatural by Hesaya. And so that's number 2, angel investing, 2 female-founded companies. And number 3, career highlight to date, probably can't top this anytime soon, but in 2022, I was awarded Young Australian of the Year in the UK by the High Commissioner to Australia at Australia House. And this award ended up leading to an invitation to Buckingham Palace to meet the King and Queen of England in recognition of my work for women and girls around the world and for my contribution to culture and community within the Commonwealth. So that's 3.
Amazing.
Your turn. It's hard up here, I tell ya. I'm pretty nervous.
She's amazing. She's so amazing. Hi, everyone. Vinisha here, founder of P3 Studio. So probably my first achievement is that I launched this business about 2 weeks ago. So P3... So P3 stands for People, Partnerships, Purpose. And so I kind of built it out of necessity, but it's also grown, and I actually thought no one would give a crap. I don't know if we're allowed to swear, but I swear a lot. I thought no one would give a crap, so I was quite down, just shared it because this was coming up, so we had to do marketing. So I was like, okay. And I woke up to lots of comments, people reaching out, and I was genuinely surprised that people would care. So that was number one. Number two, I was really reflecting on what I'm really proud of, and I think I've built my career on being myself, on being hardworking, on being genuine, on being collaborative. I didn't have to go beat down other people to get ahead. And I've had a very wayward career working at Ernst & Young, Boston Consulting Group, got into the tech world, but I didn't have to put others down. And I really leaned into all the beautiful things about being a woman to do that. So we don't have to act in that inauthentic way to get ahead. And I'm really proud that I could say in my career there's a lot of integrity and honor in what I do. And we lift up others when there are many times that people want to bring us down. The other thing, thank you. The other thing I'm really proud of that we'll talk about tonight is I got out of my survival mode into my thrive mode. And we're going to really talk about what that really means as we go on. But I've been in situations where my light was being continually squashed. I was made to be small, which is why we had that quote, because we think that's how we have to be, and we don't. And because I allowed my light to flourish, and I got out of a really toxic marriage, I got out of really toxic situations, it was how I can be where I am today, where I love to see others grow. I love to get people being empowered to make the decisions that they want to so they can live the life they want to. And so everything I speak of today, or will be speaking today, is from experience.
Amazing. Doone and Vinisha, thank you so much for joining us. We should have time at the end for some questions. So do you know if we can get the Slido up, the QR code up on the screen so people can, I think it's the next one. There we go. If you want to submit your questions, and then you can also vote up the questions you might want to hear answers to. We'll have some time at the end and we'll be asking the panelists some of your questions. Now, so people's careers go in so many different winding directions, and figuring out the path you want to take can be so difficult at each different step. So where did or do you want to end up in your career, and at what point did you decide on the current direction? Pretty often in life we kind of find ourselves at these seemingly huge inflection points. I'd love if you could each talk about kind of one of those big moments for you and how you were feeling at that time.
Do you want to start?
You go.
So the answer is God, no. I wanted to be a fashion designer, and then I realized I could not sew. So that dream went down the drain. Would I, and I know it's a cheeky flex, but would I, in my life today, think that my next trip to Saudi Arabia, which is where this is from, would be dependent on the Royal Highness's diary? No. Would I think that I would be training to be in a program where I can be in a governance board and proper sponsored board? No. So, yeah, I'm genuinely surprised that I am here. And do you want to talk about career pivot now, or
I think before we do, I think you alluded to Saudi Arabian royalty. I don't think you can just say that and then just glaze over it.
I'm working on a project over there in one of the Giga projects, and yeah, royalties involved. So the next time I go over, it will be to do something with them. So yeah. I can't say
not
Okay,
sure.
that's completely fine. Yeah, I guess I'd be keen for you to talk a little bit about either like a big inflection point or pivot or change in your career that you've had, and how you were feeling at the time, and kind of how you went about navigating that change.
Yeah, so there are probably just two I highlight. So I thought that when I moved to the UK after I did my degree, did the whole working thing, that I went to the UK, thought I'd find my whole meaning of life and work, but I just loved travel. And so I was an executive assistant to CEOs. I got my job to work for the first blind transgender person in Parliament, and I got that job because apparently in an interview I told her I like to give hugs. That's how my career has been. And so then I came back and got a job as an executive assistant in Ernst & Young. And then from there they said, why don't you become a consultant? And I was like, what's a consultant? And I was like, people get paid to solve people problems? Like, I didn't know that was a thing. Because to get into the consulting world, you have to have a grad program where you work for free. And I worked 4 jobs during university. So that was never an option for me. And then I pivoted when I was older, and I remember I had to start as a grad again. And I remember saying to my mum, I was so mad. I was like, I don't want to be around these young people. I have to start all over again. And she kind of gave me that slap in the face to kind of say, never underestimate what you can learn from young people. Like, take your ego out a bit. So I completely pivoted from there, got into doing people advisory work, did some work with domestic violence, child protection, work with not-for-profits, government. Then I moved to Sydney, and then from there got tapped on the shoulder to go join Boston Consulting Group, one of the top tiers focusing on people, culture, org design. So that pivot was quite substantial because it changed me into the career that I am today, that I didn't even know I was capable of doing. And then the next one is how I got into tech and startups. I came back from my Eat, Pray, Love journey from America, and I was like, what do I do with my life now? And I saw that Think and Grow recruit for startups because all I knew was Amazon, Facebook, that's Microsoft. That's literally all I knew about tech. I didn't know there was a whole world within it. And I asked Think and Grow, can you help me find a job? And they're like, we like you. And I did this presentation for them, and then I got into it. And now I'm in the tech startup world where I can be really quirky, walk around with a briefcase, wear quirky earrings, but work with really smart people that want to get stuff done. So they were probably my 2 biggest pivots.
Amazing. And I guess based on that, your experiences, do you have any advice for any women in the room who might be going through it right now?
I think you got to lean into what you're curious about. I think just being purely passion-led, you have to also be very realistic. Even when I took this job with Think and Grow, I was talking to my therapist, and we're like, what is your human need at the time? What do you really, it's a non-negotiable for you at this stage of life, so you can give it all you can. So I think it's being realistic, what you need financially, what you're prepared to do, what you're prepared to work towards as well. That's, I think, very key. Because then you don't want to be resentful to whatever you do. You don't want to give it all you got because you've got other commitments.
Definitely agree with that, for sure. Doone, definitely keen to hear from you as well, I guess, of a career pivot you went through and how you're feeling at the time, and also any advice.
Always pivoting. Still pivoting, still evolving. Quick story, Vinisha and I actually connected at a poker event because of her earrings that said something absolutely hilarious. I don't know if we should share. Lots of very nice swear words. And that's how we're friends. I'll tell you after. So it's not on the record. Okay, pivots. Oh my God, I love a pivot. It's my favorite scene from Friends. I use that GIF in like every presentation that I do. I don't have 2 because I have so many. I am someone that really leans into the notion of trying things out to figure out what I don't like, to push myself in the direction of what I do like. So when I was in my early 20s, I had never even heard of the word startup. I certainly didn't know what that meant, and I certainly hadn't heard the word entrepreneur or entrepreneurship. But I was kind of eager to also work in fashion, and I heard of this company that was starting in Sydney, and at the time I lived in Queensland, and I was like, great, I'm going to pack my bags, I'm going to convince myself to get an internship. And this is the good old days where you could work for free and get lots of internships and lots of great experience on your resume, which you can't do anymore. Anyway, so that little tiny company was actually the Iconic, and I was an early employee there when we were just, rocking out on picnic tables with internet dongles, trying to introduce the way consumers shop online into the Australian market and, build this technology business. And it was around that time that it was my first kind of like job. And at the time it was like my dream job. It was so much fun. I went from intern to whatever to head of organic social. So I got to build a lot of community in those early days when like Facebook was a thing and like Instagram was just becoming a thing and Twitter was just becoming a thing. And as I kind of progressed in that job, I was looking to the people around me and to my managers and to my bosses and realizing that I didn't want those jobs, and that's not what I could see myself doing. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was in my early 20s. I was wild, but I knew that it wasn't that. And so as the company kind of progressed and became more corporate, I realized corporate and the corporate environment really wasn't for me. It didn't suit my personality. So similar to you, packed my bags, moved to the UK and spent 8 years there. And then in that time, I went from trying other kind of corporate jobs, realizing it definitely confirmed wasn't for me. I met my now husband and built an agency to fund the development of his tech company. He has a software business, and kind of went through that journey, realized I didn't want to be running an agency. Wasn't for me either. I tried out freelancing, I tried out remote work, I started a jewellery e-commerce business. I kind of just dipped my toe in the things that took my interest without it being so tied to my identity. I wasn't really concerned, with my first jewellery brand. I wasn't really concerned that this was my baby and I've got to make it work at all costs. I did it for a couple of years, tried that on, took what I wanted from it, and then was like, cool, time to let this go. And then eventually pivoted kind of really organically and accidentally, I guess, into Female Startup Club. So when you hear that saying, it takes 10 years to reach overnight success, I think it also applies. It takes 10 years to figure out what the fuck you want to do, because you got to try a lot of things to realize that sometimes it's not what you think it is, you don't like it, and you need to try something else. And so I guess my advice is just try things on. I don't really subscribe to the notion of like, fuck it, quit your job, go all in tomorrow, and like making these big rash life changes. I'm all about kind of like taking steps in the direction of where you think you want to go and like dipping your toe and testing it out and seeing, what that might look like and trying that on, and kind of just always iterating in the direction of whatever your North Star is or whatever your purpose is at that time.
Amazing. I think you mentioned, after a while at the Iconic, you realized it was time to leave. I think it's so easy when you're at a place for so long, you can feel kind of stuck. Was, I guess, there a specific moment when you decided, no, I'm done, I need to quit, I need to move to the UK, it's time for a change?
I think it's really easy to, like, you're right, it's really easy to get stuck in that state of inertia where you're just like going, and then like you look back after a year and you're like, I hate this. What the fuck am I doing with my life? This sucks. Going to work every day, commuting an hour every day. Like, I remember at one point I lasted 3 months in this corporate job, but it was like an hour and a half each way out of London. And I was like, nah, this is just not for me. Like, no, sir. There wasn't one specific moment. I think you can like be in the dream situation where like everything is amazing, you're loving it, and then you kind of realize like, things aren't feeling the same as they used to. I'm starting to feel a bit bored, I'm starting to feel a bit stuck, or maybe like I'm kind of reaching the top of what I'm going to get out of this business or out of this career. And so when you're kind of reaching that top, I feel like it's better to leave when you're at the top versus going down the other side, and kind of being action orientated and keeping in that forward moving motion of just being like, okay, cool, this isn't necessarily working for me now, and kind of just being very self-aware and like observing your own feelings and your own emotions kind of like consistently, I guess, to make sure that as things slowly start to change, you're then like, I'm aware, I'm self-auditing, what can I do to kind of realign and get me back on my new track kind of thing. And that might be changing jobs or launching a side hustle or starting a new hobby, whatever it might be, taking those tiny steps in the right direction.
Yeah, I think I completely agree and also sympathise. I was at my old organisation for 4 years, started as an intern, finished as head of ops, and then after 4 years did the opposite of you in that quit my job in the UK and came here. So move halfway around the world, I think, is the other thing.
Yeah, that's the answer.
That's the answer. So to switch gears a little bit, I think everyone on stage and in this room has faced various hardships in their life, in their career, and kind of keen to talk a little bit more about this as well. And I think one thing I do want to caveat with this is obviously these are all our own individual experiences, and we're talking about gendered experiences today, but when we're talking about hardships and discrimination that exists, it's absolutely not limited to being a woman, to gender in general. And in order to dismantle the patriarchy and all of the institutions that exist around it, it also requires looking at things like race and sexuality and disability and class. And yeah, just that I think it's worth us remembering that as well. So now moving to talk a little bit about some of the hurdles and difficulties you faced. Upon reflection, could you share one of the biggest challenges you faced in your career? Vinisha, can I start with you?
Hard things were dealing, so I'm sure everyone has had in this room, dealing with someone or people actively sabotaging your career due to their insecurities, and really trying not to let that eat you completely and become bitter and twisted, and trying to navigate in a way where you don't blame the world, where you take action, you see it as the pivot, same thing. The universe is making you pivot, but also going, okay, how do I understand the behavior? So I read books to help me navigate people who are like this. Have you guys heard of the Certified Asshole book? No? It's really good. It's from a Harvard person wrote it. It had a swear word in it. But just to understand the minds of these people, and for me, it was understanding that, you know, the analogy I use is that, you know, you've got a bright light and there's two types of people in the world. So when you kind of shine in your authentic self and doing and delivering what you're meant to be doing, and leaning into those strengths, you have people who see your light and it shows their shadow, so all the things that are not great about them that you're highlighting, and they want to just squash it, because if they squash you, then they don't see the shadow. And I've had that happen to me numerous times in my career. How dare she be pretty? How dare she be smart? How dare she be kind? How dare people like her? How dare she be capable? And then the other part that I see with people who are leaning and doing what they're meant to be doing is that sometimes you're around people who are quite down in their light and they try and take yours so you could shine in on theirs, and then there's actually quite a draining thing. So for me, it's not saying you only find like-minded people, but just finding people who are really aligned into making the world better and are reflective and in their growth mindset. And I have been in organizations where it's been the opposite, and I thought it was me, and I thought I was the one that was defective and I was the one that's terrible, but I was just trying to fit into a place where I was not welcomed. And it eats into you, and you think, well, maybe I am incapable, maybe I'm not meant to be bright. But actually you just have to find the place where you are seen for what you are. So I've dealt with quite a few of those, and just saying it's not me, it's them. They have a vendetta against themselves, and that's why they act like that, because I have met people like Doone, I have met people in this room today who actually empower each other. And it's very, very different when you don't realise that that can be your normal. Sometimes you get into that and you just think that's just the way it is, but it doesn't have to be. I'm not saying everyone quit your job if you hate the person you work with, by the way, disclaimer. But I have been in those situations where it eats at you, but you actually realise that it's them, it's not you, and the world isn't all that evil. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think the main thing is to surround yourself with community who lift you up rather than bring you down.
Yeah, and if they don't, they just recognise that that's them and then manoeuvre around it, whether it's changing your attitude, changing how you deal with it, or shifting roles if you can. I mean, cognizant we have to survive and pay mortgages and eat and live and look for after our families, but it's just knowing that if someone is like that, or if you're in an environment like that, if you are able to shift it, because it will eat at you and then you will become dimmer, you will get into survival mode. And as her bracelet says, empowered women empower women. Hurt people hurt people. So when you are in somewhere where you are out of survival into the thrive mode, you actually do better for the world.
Love that. Thank you, Vinisha. Doone, you can follow that.
Yeah. Hard act to follow. I mean, I would echo a lot of what Vinisha has said. You know, the reality of like career, starting a business, running a business, just life in general, is that there are so many challenges that come up on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis. And sometimes those weekly things can blend into seasons and they can take a while to kind of come back around. I think like for me, when I think about the kinds of hardships that I've gone through, it's also really related to toxic behavior, actually both from men and women. Sometimes you can often think that you have, you know, someone who's really in your corner and championing you, and they're really not, and it happens more than you think, or probably everyone in this room is like nodding along being like, yep, I have one of those. So I would say that, you know, just toxic behavior in general is something that I've faced a lot throughout my career. I think as well, like I kind of have this vibe and personality that I can often be underestimated and written off as the ditzy dumb blonde, which makes me lol, and I definitely use it to my advantage. But what I would say is that when you're going through a low point or you're going through a low season, what makes it easier is when you're working in alignment with your purpose, or when you have a really strong North Star, especially when you're kind of building a business or running a startup. Knowing why you do what you do every day makes those million shitty things that are happening on the regular just easier to wear and to take. And, you know, the more that these things happen, which is inevitable, that challenges and hardships will happen for you, it makes them kind of like easier to ride those low waves. And also, I don't know, I feel like you get so many reps in and then you're like, meh, not as bad as I thought, not as bad as last time. And it really is where you build strength and resilience and find out more about yourself. I would say, you know, besides the conceptual, like kind of having a strong North Star and having a strong purpose, there's also 3 practical tips that I use in my day-to-day life all the time, but they come in particularly handy when I'm in a low season or I'm not doing so great because of whatever reason. The first is following the 1% method. I think, you know, often we can be unmotivated, we can be going through a hard time at work, we can have something really emotionally deflating happen to us that really like brings us down. And or you know what, we could also just have our period and be like, fuck this. But in those times, I just love to operate with the 1% method. I'm like, okay, cool, I'm not operating at my usual output, but what is the one thing that I could do today that's on my list that will still shift the needle forward? And if I just get that done, it's gonna be out of my mind, and that essentially is your 100% for that day. And so being kind to yourself and just being like, cool, if that's it, the 1% is it, great. And that over the compounded over the long term, you know, really adds up and becomes meaningful. The second for me is daily cold showers or cold therapy. My husband is Swiss, and a couple of years ago we were in the Swiss mountains in winter, and I was listening to someone, it was probably Tim Ferriss, talking about cold therapy, and I was like, well, what better time than now to put myself through grueling, ice-cold, glacial water at nighttime? Let's do it. And even though I actually cried the first time I did it because it was so cold and so painful, I now have that as part of my routine, and I am addicted to cold showers. The mood boost helps with anxiety, helps with productivity. I actually just love that as part of my daily ritual, and those are the kinds of things that even if I'm having a shitty time and going through a challenge, I know the small things that bring me joy on a daily basis, and that's one of them. And then the third thing is, oh, what is it? Oh yeah. I have a busy brain, and so meditation doesn't work for me. And I've tried all the things, I try it all the time. I still circle back to it, but I'm like, you know what, this doesn't work for me. And what does work for me is Wim Hof breathing exercises. And you know, all the things that I've told you just now, the 1% method, cold showers, and Wim Hof, these are all free. These are all in our toolbox. Everyone can use these every day if they work for you. But for me, even tonight before coming here, doing a Wim Hof 11-minute guided meditation is really powerful. And meditation hasn't worked for me, but I find Wim Hof a real winner. So they're my 3 practical tips.
Amazing. Thank you so much for such actionable advice for everybody.
Love an action.
It's great. So just a quick reminder to submit your questions via the Slido. If we can get the QR code again, just because we're going to move to those very soon. As it's International Women's Day, I also want to talk a little bit about operating in male-dominated spaces. As I said earlier, I think it's 26% of people in the tech sector are women, which means a lot of people in this room are navigating challenges to do with that. I'd love to hear if you've got any stories or experiences of navigating those spaces and any advice specifically about how to not survive but thrive within male-dominated spaces.
Do you want me to start? Gosh, I mean, I've really built my world around brilliant female founders and brilliant women who are either in the early stages of building their businesses or are going to be future founders and want to build a business. But having said that, I definitely do play into male-dominated industries, very much so the ecosystem around VC and the investment world. And I think what I've learned is your voice is just so powerful, and getting out there and just using your voice as a tool to shout about the things that matter to you, whether it's in that industry, whether it's something else, but it's something we all have, and sometimes it can feel overwhelming to use your voice. And I think it took me a while to feel confident to say what I really thought, but using your voice and getting out there and just telling people what the fuck is up is a really powerful tool. I also think that, where was I going with this? Crushing it. Yeah, I would just say using your voice, often it can surprise people, and by saying something and putting it out there, you never know, you know, how, like, you can change the outcome of something just by sharing like how you're feeling or calling it out. And I'm in my call it out era, so if you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll know I love a snarky little comment. You'll know I love to post the guys who slide into my DMs. That's it.
Okay, echoing the voice. So I've worked in corporate and then I've been in tech for about 1.5 years. And I was saying to the people at Think and Grow, I've never felt more sexualized than I have in tech, than I have ever in my career working as executive assistant to boards in corporate land, because there's a certain level of professionalism and moral conduct which I have not seen. So I had an investor that said to me, "You have really nice legs. Do you want a massage?" In my head, I was like, "Do you ask men that? Like, it's pretty gross." And it was like 1 year ago. And what I would do is I would actually come back, and because I worked with 4 dudes in the office, and I would tell them what's happening. And talking about using your voice, you know, I was in Saudi Arabia and it's quite safe for women, but they're like, "Oh, it's really safe, nothing happens." I was followed by a car at 11 a.m, full of buyer, covered. And they were like, "Sometimes they just do it for fun." I was like, "Is it fun to follow a woman in a car when there's no one else around at 11 a.m. and yell at her things?" Like, no. So I do share stories quite vocally to men and to women, and you find the advocates that go, "That's not right." And it's just sharing, that's for me. And even in male-dominated industries, like my first gig was in tradies. I was like an EA to a trainee school. And they took me seriously, and I could be a bit cheeky, a bit more fun. I really leaned into the feminine, but you see your capability, you see your smartness. You don't have to act like the tough man in the toxic traits of masculinity. There's a lot of beautiful ones, but you don't have to go into the toxic capitalism masculinity to get taken seriously. I have built a career path with men and women, and it's just really leaning into knowing what your strengths are. And if there are other women in there, I lean into them if it's positive, and we kind of work together and we lift each other's voices up. So we're not competing for men anymore like we did back in the survival reptile brain when we had to fight for men's attention so they could protect us and we could have their babies so we could survive. That's where we're all coming from, right? Like I went to a conference, a Web3 conference or something, I can't remember, when I first started, and I had an older man came up to me and he's like, out of all the people here, you're the most beautiful. And then I had another woman across the room that said, you're so lucky. I said, well, you've now just created division amongst us. I'm not fighting you, especially you. And so I just want to say, we all have our own strengths. We all have our own weaknesses. And when you see another woman or when you see someone else, find the advocates, lean into your strengths. We do not have to fight each other. There are enough seats on the table, please. And if there's not, then fucking get another chair and make way. We literally here to support and grow each other. We don't have to fight over them anymore. We can all buy, they've fought for us so we can have our own financial stability. So that was my say, is just look for the advocates. The guys I worked with in Lean Grow, they were huge advocates. I go to them and I would tell them what happened and they were shocked because they don't walk in the same shoes that I do. And then I have dudes say to me, like we did with Jacob, he was like, how do I make it better for my daughter? I said, you call it out, but I need you guys to call it out. I need more guys to call it out, but I also need to call it out. So other women don't have to feel scared or anyone have to feel scared. They shouldn't have to navigate the workplace. When I got this job on this contract gig in Saudi Arabia, the first thing that came to my mind and to my mother's mind, is it safe? Will I get sexually abused? I'm sorry, that's pretty fucked. But that's the reality in how we live. And I want the next generation of women, hopefully, to not have that in the back of their mind when they take an opportunity. It should be just equal for both.
Thank you, Vinisha. I think you touched on so many great points there, both in terms of that it's not just the women in the room and definitely not just women whose job it is for us to be tackling this problem, but in order for us to do that, it needs to be having everyone on board advocating for greater equality. This actually leads very nicely onto one of the questions we got from the audience, which was, which communities have been most supportive in your journey? How did you find or build them? Doone, do you want to kick us off?
Ooh, which communities have been critical in the journey? Well, we're at Startmate. I went through the First Believers program last year, the kind of angel investing program that they host, and this was an amazing community to be part of, both from the men that were there, the women that were there, the people who hosted it. It was just an amazing place to share what you're going through, share what your vision is, share the things that matter to you, and have other people be like, oh shit, didn't know that, very interesting, great, now I'm on board too. So I think Startmate's a great example of someone that fosters community. I built my own. I put women around me that I wanted to speak to often, that I wanted to learn from often, and that I just wanted to be around. And you're one of those women. I'm lucky to know you. And I would say that, when you're thinking about trying to find these communities that you want to be a part of, ask for a recommendation. Ask the people on either side of you. Ask your friends who you admire. Where are they hanging out? Who do they know? What groups are they part of? Another really interesting event, actually, where we met randomly, was Poker Night, hosted by Rain. And that was a great event. It actually doesn't exist anymore, but there is a women's poker night coming up, and it's on the 27th of March, and you can DM me after for details. But basically asking for a recommendation, I think, is a great place to start, and yeah, follow the breadcrumbs.
Amazing. And also all the people in this room, the other one. Promise I didn't plant that question to get you to plug Startmate. Vinisha, do you have anything you want to add on that?
I also will add the Startmate Women's Group was also really, really lovely, really supportive people, so we'll add to that. I'm also part of Early Work, Air Tree Pioneers, and I think for me, I also forge and create my community. So I was in Saudi Arabia for a month and I left with a goodbye. Like I left in tears. I think it's, if you want it, you have to invest in it. And I have even my friends here today that are here to support you, but you have to put yourself out there. I mean, I'm seeing loneliness as this huge thing right now, but you know, one of the girlfriends I made when I moved into my new home, I put a post, like a little card next to 2 of the doors, and I said, "Hi, I'm moving in, do you want to be my friend? Here's my phone number." And my real estate agent's like, "You're crazy." And I go, what do I have to lose? Like, who is the person next door? If they don't reply, I'm not going to meet them anyway. But what do I have to gain? Everything. And I met a phenomenally young, beautiful Indian woman next to me. And we are now like those movies where you come over to each other's houses. And I met a girl...
Can confirm, have been there.
Yeah, she has been there. She's there for my
have
welfare.
seen
Have
these
met the
two
girl.
in action.
Have met the girl, she's real. But it's you put yourself out there and you create your community. Like the women I have around me and the people I have around me are phenomenal. They're my absolute cheerleaders, but I would not put up with anything less. So you gotta find it, but you have to put yourself out there. My mum and I befriended the girl who sold me the bed at Tamu Lane in I don't know, Moore Park. I met a girl in the Dubai Mall line, and she is a neurosurgeon. And I met her in Dubai, and she's from Riyadh. And I said, we caught a cab home together, and I said, I'm going to see you when I come back to Saudi. And I met all these other girls, and sometimes I host clothes swapping parties at mine because I just meet all these phenomenally interesting women. And I was like, you should all meet and hang out with each other, even without me.
Can I come?
Yeah. We all have clothes to swap. You all can come to mine.
Amazing. Yeah, it's honestly so wonderful making friends in the most random of places, and it's just the most heartwarming thing. Vinisha, I'll come to you first because I feel like I've made Doone speak first a few times now. What is your biggest advice for getting out of your head and just doing the damn thing? Just do the damn thing.
Feel like Nike, just do it. Why are you feeling like that? So I think I go back to survival mode so much because it runs so much of our patterning. So if you're worried because you have a financial thing that you need to have a minimum amount of money, I want to start a new venture, but I have these obligations in my head, or I have to look after my aging parents, or whatever the scenario, like figure out for you what do you need to get out of your reptilian survival mode brain that you're able to be more expansive and creative. So for me, it's figuring out that and then putting your mind at ease as to why you can't get your head out of it. And then, look, for me, in terms of how I look after my health, secrets, no, it's not. I have a human behavior coach I see once a month. I have my therapist. I go to acupuncture where I do cupping, gua sha, why I look young, I pretend. Gua sha, acupuncture, cupping, needling, and I exercise minimum 5 times a week, well, try to. So in terms of my health and my head, emotional, physical, mental, I am constantly in what can I do better. Now, I'm not saying I don't have shitty days. I do, because I am a human. But what I'm saying is that there are the people who sit still and watch life go by, and there are the people that do it. And you have to find out what makes you click. Get out of survival. Get out of the thing that you need, that you minimum need. Write that down. My girlfriend is in the audience today. We have a quarterly check-in of our life. So we have about 5-6 spans of our life that we are looking at, like, health. We look at, finance. We look at We look at all of that, and then we do an audit against those kind of bits, and we celebrate each other, you know. And sometimes having a kick buddy to, you know, kind of keep you accountable and to motivate you and to actually highlight, actually, this is amazing. She'll be here and she's like, Vinisha, we spoke that you'd be speaking. She's here. So I think for me, sometimes getting out of your own head is having someone else that can see you, be you, and not what you see. So sometimes I say to some of my girlfriends, if only you could see what I could see, you would see magic. So that's my advice to the person to get out of their head.
Oh man, I love that. Goodness me.
I love that too. What about you, Doone? Do you have anything you'd like to add on just getting out of your head?
I'm a very practical person, so I'm just like, write the list. Get a good list going and just cross it off the list. Like, just figure out the action steps that you need to take. Stop thinking about it. Just write the list, do the list, and then just see what happens. You know, when we're taking tiny actions consistently towards our goals, again, the compounded effect of that over the course of 1 month, 6 months, 1 year, 10 years is just phenomenal. So I love a list, love a post-it note, love to cross it off. And then I would say, if you're someone who struggles with action and you've done your self-audit and you know that is, you know, what you struggle with, then yeah, I would say find a coach, find a business coach. I do that, by the way. Coach, find a mentor, find someone in your, you know, career, your workplace, a colleague, someone that you admire, someone that you respect, someone you trust, to, again, kind of meet as your accountability buddy and help you get out of your head and work towards your goals.
Love a list. The advice I always used to get was to swallow the frog. So always start with the worst thing on your to-do list, because otherwise it's gonna just like loom over you all day, and it's got to be done anyway. So if you just tick it off, then it's done.
Or outsource it.
Yeah, or outsource it.
There's also different frameworks that you can kind of try for productivity. So Eisenhower box is a good one, where sometimes we end up getting stuck doing a lot of busy work that's just keeping us busy and not moving us forward, and then we're spiraling because we're thinking about it, and we're going around and around and around. And so if you have this framework kind of printed out in front of you, you can understand whether it should even be on your to-do list or not, whether it should be delegated, or whether it should be like, this is a nice to have, but in the future, I don't have capacity for it now. Or this should not be on my list at all. I'm just wasting time and I'm keeping myself busy. That's not moving me forward. So there's plenty of productivity frameworks out there, but the Eisenhower box is a really simple one that you can just kind of print out and keep front of mind.
Amazing, thank you. So we're just about out of time, but I'm keen to ask you both one final question before we wrap up. You, as we started with, you listed 3 achievements, and you are both 2 incredibly successful women. I guess looking back to when you started, would you have predicted where you are now? And I'd like you to give 2 pieces of advice, which is, 1, what advice would you have given yourself when going back to that time? And what advice do you give to any women in the room who are in those shoes now?
Whew.
Chunky question.
Chunky question. I absolutely would not have imagined that this is where my career would have taken me. As I said in the beginning, I'm actually inherently a really shy person, really nervous, and you could not have told me that I would be speaking to hundreds of people in rooms, on stages, or being on camera. That was like my absolute fear, so no, definitely not. When I think back to the moment where my husband was like, you're having all these really cool, interesting conversations that are really valuable, maybe you should turn it into a podcast. And my reaction was, oh, hell no, this is terrifying. Like, I'm absolutely at my limit. But my internal voice was like, but I wish I could do that. Like, I wish that I could take those things and be that person that was sitting up here on stage and kind of conquering those fears that you have, but you wish that you could improve on. And so the 2 main things that I tell myself still on repeat, and I tell everyone all the time, is don't be crippled by perfection. Just start, get out there, put stuff out there, work towards the goals that you have, and take those tiny actions. And the second is stop stopping. I think we can often be the person that is like, oh, I'm gonna start a podcast. And then 7 episodes in, you stop. you haven't given it time to flourish. You haven't given yourself time to understand whether it is for you or whether it isn't for you. So by stopping and kind of committing to the goals that you have with kind of a long period of time to test it and let it flourish, you will look back and be like, wow, okay, you know, for me with the podcast, I set myself a goal of 100 episodes, not looking at the data, not looking at the numbers, just see how that would go. That was in like May 2020, and that took me, if I was doing 3 episodes a week, until December 29, which I did. And then deciding, once you have a good data set, to then be like, do I like this? Do I not? Is it worth it? Is it not? So yeah, stopping, because sometimes when you push through that hard, crappy feeling of, oh, I don't know, this is awkward, I look bad on camera, or I feel, you know, silly or stupid, you never know what's on the other side unless you go through it. And I think even when I look back at my early episodes on the podcast, or my early videos on TikTok, they're so embarrassing. They really suck. And it wasn't until about episode 70 that I started getting confidence, and you could hear the shift in my interviewing skills, and I perfected, and I really learned and worked at mastering that skill set. So I think, don't be crippled by perfection, stopping, and yeah, take action.
Thank you, Doone. And to bring us home, Vinisha, what about you?
No, definitely not. I constantly got asked, like, what are you going to do with your life? And I was like, I don't know. I have 3 things I would tell myself. So sorry, I know we're meant to only have 2, but I have 3. I love this story about the car story. I don't know if you've heard about it in the garage. So father says to the daughter, take your car to garage A. I'll pay 10,000. Take it to garage B. I pay 100,000. Take it to garage C. I'll pay $1 million. And the daughter is confused to the father and says, it's the same car. And he said, go where you're valued. So that's what I would tell myself. So what we have in society is people that take their car to A and expecting $1 million. And that's not going to change. So I ask the people in this room, be the people that see the value of someone beyond their race, beyond their gender, beyond their disability. See a person's potential so they don't have to remain in that car yard. So that's one. I keep going back to survival versus thrive, and I'm going to use a very personal story on that. So I was in a marriage where he was very insecure. He wanted me to be a certain way. I also am of Indian background, so there are a lot of expectations into a marriage and what the role of a woman should be, and it was to play small. And had I had stayed in that, I would not be where I am in my career today. And I couldn't, because every day I was trying to stay alive. Every day I was trying not to make him angry. Every day I was trying to, just be okay and just get through it. And when you have such short-term thinking, it's so hard to think long-term. It's so hard to think about where can I go where I can nurture others and myself and do what I'm actually meant to be doing. And this is what I wonder in the world, how many of us are in toxic relationships, toxic setups, where we are not able to reach our full potential because we are just thinking about the next day. And that's my wish and my prayer, that everyone gets out of that. And I constantly preach it because I was in it, and I just want everyone else to get out of it. And so they can do whatever they're meant to do with the choices of what they can. And I know that my family didn't go through, and my mother and my family did not go through what they went through, so I can end up in a mediocre relationship and have a mediocre life. And I'm not putting down anyone with a mediocre life, but I'm just saying, you're not able to reach your potential. It is such a disservice to the world and to the next generation. So every generation has had their battle. The women before us fought, and the advocates before us fought, so we could vote, so we could have our own mortgage, so we could even have our own passport. And so it's up to us to get out of survival into thrive, so we can actually pave the path for the next generation. So there's no such thing as gender fucking pay gap. I'm sorry. That should not fucking exist. And it makes me so mad that just because I'm a different gender, I get paid less because I can't advocate for myself. Well, go into organizations and advocate. I know Rose did. She's here. And her story is incredible, and she advocated because she was inside the decision making. And so it's up to us to find whatever we're good at, to make it better for the next generation, so that is not an issue for them. And also sexual abuse at work. I'm also going on learning to be on board so I can actually be on influence that this behavior will not exist. It cannot thrive in the environments that are in, because I will call it out, and we need all of you to call it out. So the next generation doesn't have to wonder, why am I scared of going to work?
And I would also just, sometimes people aren't able to use their own voice, so they aren't able to advocate for themselves. And so when we're thinking about how we can create change and impact, I think we often think, how do we do this en masse? How do we change the world? How do we get to space? Whatever. I'm like, how do we just impact the direct communities around us, our inner circle at work, our direct community? If you have someone in your life who can't advocate for themselves, but you can in the workplace or in a business or in the tech sector, I think that is where these seemingly small moments that could seem really insignificant at the time, that compounded again over your career and lifetime of choosing to advocate, choosing to connect dots, choosing to be the one to stand up and say something if you see something that's wrong. That is real change, and that's really powerful, and it's something that we can all do every single day over the course of our career.
Doone and Vinisha, thank you. Thank you both so much for joining us. It has been such a wonderful and insightful conversation, and I hope everyone else in this room is also feeling so uplifted and impassioned about our power and what we can do to uplift ourselves, uplift others, and make sure we are thriving rather than surviving.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We're going to take a very quick 5-minute break before we'll be having Arabella Macpherson, who's going to be running a workshop on communicating confidence. Kel also has something she wants to say.
Quick housekeeping. Great work on the Nibbles, everyone. Proud of you. We've topped up a couple cheese boards as well. And also great work on staying hydrated. That's been awesome. We are running low on glasses, so if you can just hang on to your glass when you pop up to the bar. So during this 5 minutes, let's keep it snappy. Grab a top up of a nibble or another drink, or stay hydrated. But hang on to your glass, please.
And one final thing. Sorry, Doone wants to add.
Sorry, one final thing. I want to record a TikTok, so we need some high energy in here so I can film a quick video. What are we gonna say? What's our cheer squad? What? Invest in women. Right. Oh, money. Let's shout money at the top of our lungs. I'm gonna do a pan. Yeah, make it rain. I'm gonna, like, if we all want to stand up, I'm gonna take a video of the whole kind of room, and we're gonna yell, "Money, money!" on 3. 1, 2, 3. Money, money, money! Thank you.
Okay, hope everyone has managed to get some more snacks, get some more drinks, is feeling rejuvenated. So, next up on the agenda this evening, we have Arabella Macpherson joining us, who will be delivering a workshop on on communicating confidence. So, Arabella, over to you.
Hey. At the end of last year, I was pretty exhausted. Were you? December, boom. But I happened to land a very, very big job, which meant that I would be working through December, through January. I delivered the job early January, and I was really exhausted. But then I got asked to run a 5-day MBA course on negotiation for 40 students. So then I was back in the books, putting together this program, which I said no to 3 times, but I ended up doing it because one woman really believes in me. And it got to the point where it was February, and then March, and I thought, I should probably go on a date. I have been neglecting my social life. All I have been doing has been working, hanging out with my border collie. And so I found someone online and I thought I'd go against type. You know, I wouldn't go for the really intellectual, slightly narcissistic, slightly controlling man. I thought I'd go for someone who was, you know, maybe a country guy, someone who had no idea what an MBA was or psychobabble and all that. And so I chose someone completely against type. He was so against type that he was a 5'5" ex-jockey turned bodybuilder. I thought, why not? Why not? I'm not a heightist. Why be a heightist? Why does a man have to be taller than me? I'm already tall enough. I can fight for the both of us. And so I didn't really vet him very well before I got to the date. But it was just on Monday, and I really didn't want to go. I was so tired. I thought, come on, you've got to get out there. You've got to have these conversations. You've got to meet with these people because they're not going to find you on your couch. So I met him at a local pub. I actually had to pick him up from the train station because he caught the train down from the Central Coast. Bless. So I picked him up, he got in the car, and he tries to kiss me on the lips. I'm like, whoa! And I got a side kiss, which was very, very awkward. And I thought, you know, let it go. He's nervous, he's anxious, he's probably done, you know, he's doing his best. And so we went to the pub where we were going to hang out, and we got out. And we went to the bar and we ordered food, and we went and sat down. And his first question to me was, "So, what do you think of my body?" I was like, "Excuse me?" He's like, "Is it what you expected?" And now I know that men are very sensitive. And I said, "Your body's, it's great. Like, you know." In my head, I'm like, 5'5" ain't that bad. Like, it's not too. it's like, you're fine. You're good. I said, "You look great." And he goes, "No, really." And I was like, no, I'm good. I said, you look great. And I said, to be honest, bodies, I don't really care about bodies. Men can be, you know, whatever they like, as long as they're kind, they're interesting, they're interested. And he goes, "Oh, come on." He said, "All my friends with benefits, they love my body." And where I live, on the Central Coast, when I go to the gym, the girls walk in and they go, "They do a double take, seriously?" And I said, "I'm sure they do." And he goes, and they even start giggling because I'm not doing it now, but when I work out, my muscles really pop. You know what I mean? And I said, "Yeah, what time is this food coming?" I thought, come on, Bella, you're not going to date this guy, but you know what to do. So I took a deep breath and I said to him, "Why is your body so important to you?" And he said, "Well, because I was the skinniest, smallest boy in my year. I was picked on. My mum died when I was 15. My dad was an alcoholic, drug addict, and he used to beat me up. And then when I was a jockey from 14 to 21, you have to be 50 kilos or under to be a jockey." He said, "Then I got too heavy, and then I decided to become a man. And so it's really, really important to me." I said, I can hear that. And he said, "My last friends with benefits." He's like, "Hang on, I'll just show you a video of..." I was like, "I don't need to see a video." And he showed me a video of this woman on a video chat with him, poor woman. He's recorded it, so be careful of your video chats. He said, "When I pulled up my shirt, look at what she says when she sees my body." And the woman just goes, "Wow." Like, and I said, "I think she's actually over your body." He's like, no, she loved it. And I said, "Did you ever go out with that woman afterwards?" He said, "No, she never called me again." I said, "I sent her all these photos from the gym." But he said his last friends with benefits, she criticised his body. He fell in love with her, and then all she did was cut him down. Thank you so much for staying to hear how you can be even more confident in the conversations that you're having, so you can have more influence and influence the people's decisions that you're communicating with. I promise that by the end of this session, you'll know exactly how to interact with people, to build that rapport, build that trust, and to have the conversations that actually get behavioural change and do what you want them to do. However, you are the experts, yes? We heard a fantastic panel just now, and you know the conversations you're having. You know the people who you find it really easy to talk to and those who you find more challenging. So please ask questions. If I can answer them straight away, I will. If I can't, I'll stay back for a bit, and I'm going to be around for the next 20 to 30 years helping people just like you have better dates. I mean, more confidence in your conversations. But it's also a lot of fun, because once you work out how to do this, you can turn it on at any moment to connect with that person and feel confident and really understand what is driving them. So let's get started and make sure you have exactly what you need to have the conversations you want to have. So if you don't mind, please close your eyes or look down if you prefer. And bring to mind the person who you find most challenging at work, or maybe at home. Now imagine your next interaction with this person. Maybe it's face-to-face, over the phone, over a video call. And just notice the thoughts and feelings that come up as you think about interacting with this person. And now imagine that when you meet with this person, you change your tack. And in fact, you try to understand them. You ask them certain questions that make them feel comfortable. And before long, you understand exactly what it is that they need. And you think, hey, they're not so bad after all. Please open your eyes. I'm Arabella Macpherson. I'm from Resonate Communications, and I'm here to help you make that happen as much as possible. But it's challenging, isn't it? And it's challenging because there's a lot of uncertainty with Ukraine, with the Middle East conflict, with the unofficial recession that happened towards the end of last year that hit a lot of business owners, with mergers and acquisitions, with all sorts of things happening geopolitically, with US elections. There's a lot of uncertainty, and as human beings, we don't like uncertainty. Secondly, it's challenging because of the competition. And that competition might be within your sector, but it also might be within your company, as lots of companies go through restructures, as they merge. And thirdly, it's challenging because of this. And those are your negative thoughts and feelings that come up and threaten your ability to communicate effectively when you're in the height of a difficult conversation or under pressure. So today, let's have a look at a few things. First of all, how to build trust, how to use qualifying questions to find out how they're making decisions and what's important to them. And thirdly, what to do with challenging questions. You know, that question that you get asked, you go, ah, and you feel this panic because you think you should know the answer. Is that okay? Awesome. So I wasn't always a communications consultant and coach. I used to be an actress and an opera singer. This was my last opera in 2007 at the Opera House. And my first one was when I was 16 with Baz Luhrmann. I was 14 at the time. It was exciting, but funnily enough, a friend came up to me from my acting days, Mel, and said, hi, we did a short film together way back when, so thank you. So I used to be an actress and opera singer. I trained in LA, New York, France, and England, and here in Australia with some of the best coaches in body language, voice, and performance. And in 2007, I was flying, this is when this opera was done, I was flying back from New York, and it was the year that I joined Facebook. Did everyone else join around 2007? Was that about it? It shows you your first profile picture from 2007, where you, yes. And I also read The Secret. Does everyone else read The Secret about them? And I loved it until it got to the point where it said, everything bad that happens to you, you also attracted. And then I took that book to Coogee Bay and I threw it so far into the ocean. I was like, fish food. But I thought, you know what? I want to get paid. I've been acting and singing opera for all my life, and I really want to use my skills for good because this is really challenging. So I looked in the newspaper for a job, because that's where we looked for jobs in that point in time. And I found a job for a corporate voice coach. I thought this will be easy. I've been acting and singing my whole life. Rang up the phone number. The person on the other end of the line was slurring. I thought this will be even easier. He can't even speak. And then I turned up and there was a wall of his books, DVDs and CDs, and he turned out to be one of the best presentation and sales coaches in Australia and the US, but he had Parkinson's disease. And my grandfather had passed away from Parkinson's, so I understood. And very quickly we started working together. And I remember actually, because I was like, I'm going to work for $75 an hour. And I came in and he said he had 100 people call him up, but I sounded the most confident over the phone. And he said, well, it's $50 an hour. And I stood up and I said, it's been a pleasure meeting you. Unfortunately, I'm $75 an hour. All the best. Hope you find the right person. And I walked out and he said, come back. And I said, okay. And he's like, you're on. And he said, come back tomorrow. And I came back the next day. And I said, what would you like to do? And he said, here's the head of the National Speakers Association. Arabella, you're going to train this person for the next hour. I said, I am? He said, you are. I told him, when he asked me, how long have you been coaching for? I said, that's a great question. 1, 2, 3, let's just say a long time. So straight away I was thrown into it and I asked this woman, so what seems to be the problem? And off we went from there. And then I worked with other coaches and coached Nestle, Fairfax and Microsoft in 2-day workshops on high impact presenting and influence and negotiation. And then in 2011, I went out on my own. And since I've been working with CEOs, execs, senior leadership teams here in Australia, Asia, the UK and the US. And what I found is that most people don't understand the brain. Most people don't know how to influence the brain, and most people don't know how to do that under pressure. So I have been dedicating my career to doing exactly that. And this is Dugsy. This was my mentor. He passed away 2 years ago. He was the best second dad I've ever had, the non-critical one. And I was living up in Byron Bay during COVID, and I flew down. I spent time with him, and there were hundreds of people who came to see him, young people, and every single one of them said, he believed in me. He believed in me. And it was 2 weeks before he was going to die, and he got his niece to write 30 cards and get 30 boxes of chocolates for all of the staff at the hospice. I said, Dugsy, you don't have to do that. You're about to die. And he said, everybody needs feedback, Belzy. Everybody needs feedback. What a man. In 2019, I was asked to co-write the communications section of Macquarie Uni's Global Online MBA. And I said no 3 times again, it must be the lucky number, but it became the most popular module in the whole MBA. We had over 66,000 people complete it and an average rating of 4.8 out of 5. Not because the other modules weren't fantastic, but because people get very good at what they do, but communicating that to others becomes challenging. So let's look at building rapport. Now, what are our 2 biggest fears? What do you think our 2 biggest fears are? Fear number 1, what is it? You're all over it. Yes, our first biggest fear is not being good enough. And that might be I'm not competent enough, I'm not responsible, I'm not experienced enough, I'm not tall enough, I'm not old enough, I'm not the right this, the right that. It all comes down to that big fear of not being good enough. And then the second fear is if I'm not good enough, I am going to be rejected. And that's a very real fear because we're tribal. And if you were rejected from your tribe, that meant almost certain death. You could not survive without your tribe. In fact, the fear of rejection follows the same neurological pathway as physical pain. Now, can everyone remember a time when you have experienced physical pain? Yeah. Good for you. Feel that pain. Good. And now, without re-traumatizing yourself, think of a time when you experienced emotional rejection, either by a partner, a group, social group, or a work group. Now, what do you remember more, the physical pain or the emotional rejection? Emotional rejection, right? So even though it follows the same neurological pathway as physical pain, we remember rejection so much more than anything else, and we will do everything we can to avoid it, which means we will stop doing a lot of things because we might be rejected. So our goal when we connect with people, because everyone's got this fear, regardless of what gender or race they are. So our goal is to move people from where they are, I think this is the right side, move people from where they are to where we want them to be. Now, how are people when you walk into a conversation with them? Are they alive, well slept, present, ready to go? Are people feeling like that when they come to a meeting, usually? No. People are usually feeling, according to Deloitte, 3 things: distracted, impatient, and overwhelmed. Who agrees with that? Yeah. They also may be feeling other things that I can't read because the board is very far away. Stressed and pressured. So our goal is to connect with them where they are and move them to where we want them to be, which is all of those other things. Reassured, inspired, motivated. Yes, that is our goal. So what we're going to do is build trust with them so that they are able to connect with you. Now, do people make logical decisions or emotional? What do we think? Yeah, we know this from the aviation industry that spent millions of dollars researching how people make decisions, especially pilots under pressure, because if they make the wrong decision, they can crash the plane, kill hundreds of people and ruin a brand. But also the advertising industry, and I've spent many years flying to London, coaching ad agencies in multi-million-dollar pitches. They have spent millions finding out how consumers make decisions because they want to influence those decisions. And on the whole, both of them say that people make emotional decisions, but they post-rationalize with logic. So according to Professor Albert Morabian from the University of California, there are 3 main elements that helps us build rapport. The first one is 55%. What is it? What is the first element? Yeah, boom. Body language. Because we're tribal, we like people who behave like us. 38% is then? That's it, the tone of your voice. And the last 7% is, drumroll, content, or what you say. Now, what do we focus on? What do we focus on? When 93% is how you communicate. Can I use you as an example? Is that okay? Yes, is that right? Yeah? I am going to shout at you. No? Okay. Can I use you as an example? Yes, I am going to shout. Is that okay? Get out of the chair! Or, get out of the chair. Give her a round of applause. Thank you so much. So I use the same words, yes? But my body language and vocal tone changed quite significantly. Thank you. So our goal is then to connect with people where they are and to match them physically and vocally. If those are the 2 parts that help us build rapport the most, then how are we going to match them physically and vocally? Well, number 1, we give them all of our attention. And then we very, very subtly match them 60%, not 100%. That's weird. Has the reverse effect. I've had it happen once where I went, oh, that's great. And she said, that's great. And I went, oh. She went, oh. And I went, oh, God. And she went, oh, God. I was like, no. Badly trained. And the last thing, and this is really ninja, and most people can't do it, but repeat their exact words and phrases back to them. Why would we do that? Why do we repeat their exact words and phrases? Prove that we're listening, yeah? To clarify? Why else? To make them like you, absolutely. Making them, yes. Also, we are all different people who've grown up in different bodies, had different experiences in different families, different cultures, different religions. We have different words to mean different things. And so if I said, what's love? Then everyone here might have a slightly different version of what that means to them. What does respect mean? Everyone might have a whole different way of saying what respect is. So you want to use their exact words and phrases because they've chosen them for a reason. Does anyone remember Natasha Stott Despoja? She was head of the Democrats, the first female political lead in Australia. And I actually spoke to someone yesterday who said that he knew her and he remembers this. But it was when Bill Clinton was coming out from the US to Australia. And she was filthy about him because it was after his dalliance with Ms. Lewinsky. And she said, when he gets out here, I'm going to spit in his face. He's the most terrible leader. America's so unfortunate to have him. And then you have the next day the plane with the stairs and the red carpet on the stairs and the line of welcome. And John Howard, our former Prime Minister, former, walking along, and he's not even looking at the person whose hand he's shaking. And then comes Bill Clinton, and he takes Natasha's hand. He says, "Natasha, it's an absolute pleasure to meet you." She melts. And the next day in the media, she's like, "Bill Clinton's such an incredible leader. It's so amazing. America's so fortunate to have him." Apparently, this man told me a lot of what Natasha said. She thought he was amazing. And you know what he was doing? He was giving her all of his attention. Now, we rarely do that, even with our best friends. We've got phones and watches buzzing and all sorts of things going on that we don't give anyone all of our attention. So what would happen if we did? I'm not sure if we have time for a little exercise. Okay, all right, so let's do a quick exercise. I assure you that it's pretty painless, and if we do it, you will really understand why it works so well. So if you don't mind pairing up, just sit to the person next to you or someone behind you as much as you can. Everyone's going to pair? Okay. So, step one, we're going to do this exercise. We're going to do this exercise 3 times, all right? So who is person A? Who's person A? Person A, you are going to be doing all of the talking. Now, the first time we do this exercise, person A is going to tell person B something that you're really proud of achieving over the last 12 months, and person B is going to match you physically and vocally. Now, I remember when I was an actress, my singing teacher, who I was desperately in love with, I was absolutely devastated when he married his boyfriend. I still tell him, "I'm waiting for you." He goes, "Okay." He now lives in New York. But he had a party when he came out to Australia, and everyone came to the party. I was exhausted. I've been coaching all week. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to stand in the kitchen and match everyone, because everyone goes to the kitchen at some point. So I was standing in the kitchen, and the first person to come in was my friend, and she was so drunk. She's like, "Bella, how are you? I'm so drunk." I was like, "Oh my God, I can see it." And she's like, "Oh my God, it's been so long." And she left, and I was like, phew. And then another friend walked in, and he was like kicking the ground. I was like, "Hey man, how's it going?" He's like, "We're trying for a baby and it's just not working." I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. What are you going to do about it?" He said, "I don't know." And that conversation went on. Then another woman came in and said, "I need to find 3 wine glasses." And I said, 3? And she said, "Yes, 3. And I said, "Red wine or white wine?" And she goes, "White." I was like, "You look down there, I'll look up here." And I had the best night. Like, I was still me. I was just exaggerating a part of me. Now, when I do this in meetings, I just went up and I sat with government I sat with execs in government recently, and I knew who the main decision maker was. And there was 12 people in the room. I just matched him the whole time. So when he leant back, I leant back. When he shifted forward, I saw him in the corner of my eye, shifted forward. Afterwards, he says, "I want to meet with Arabella." And it's just this unconscious thing. They say when you're in a bar, if you want to pick someone up. So let's give this a go. So person A is going to tell person B something they're really proud of achieving, and person B is going to match them physically and vocally. What percent? 60%. And repeat their exact words and phrases. Off you go. Okay. Well done. Okay. Good work. Everyone coming back. That's right. Okay. All right. Good. Okay, let's give a go with round 2. So now with round 2, person A is still talking, but you're going to talk about something you would like to achieve by the end of the year, and person B is going to match you physically, but no vocals, no no nothing. Yes? So person A, something you would like to achieve, and person B, no vocals, match them physically, but no vocals. Off you go. Okay, coming back. Exercise number 3. Exercise number 3 is, backwards. Exercise number 3, person A is going to tell person B something they found really challenging over the... Person A is going to tell person B something they found really challenging over the last 12 months, and person B is going to mismatch them. Pick up your phone, talk to someone else, stand up, stretch. Your time starts now. Okay, coming back. All right, so person A. Person A, how did you feel the first time we did the exercise when you were matched physically and vocally and had your words and phrases repeated back to you? How did you feel? Good? Did conversation flow well? And it continued and you felt supported, listened to, yeah? What about the second time when they repeated you physically but no vocals? Some people love it. They're like, it's great, I just talk. It's harder though, isn't it? And if I let you go for longer, the conversation would dry up more quickly. You agree? What about the third time when you were mismatched? How did that feel? Coming back. That is what, we're having it right now. That is what I see in most conversations most of the time. Someone's talking about something very challenging and everyone else is mismatching them. Not consciously, they're just thinking about their own things, what they're going to say. If they're online, they may be emailing or doing all sorts of other things. So our goal is simply to match people. Do it with the waiter, do it on the bus, do it in anyone, just practice. And you'll find that you're naturally matching your friends, the people who are closest to you. Is there a question over there? Good. So the question is, does it help you pick up more information if you're matching them physically and vocally because it's challenging when you first start to do it? Do you remember your first job that you ever did? I used to work at the opera bar with these massive hot plates and we had a slippery linen serviette and we had to put 3 plates. I could only carry 2 to start off with, and at the opera bar, people get drunker and drunker as the night goes on. I'd be like, whoa, 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 whoa. As I dodged everyone. But then soon I had 3 plates down, these massive hot plates with serviettes, and I was an absolute pro. Until one time, they changed those glass doors. And I came running out with the plates and went poof, and did a food angel. So when you start something, it's always challenging. Why? Because you have to think about it and it's not a pattern and it's not learnt or in the body. And you think when you're first doing it, oh my God, they're so gonna know I'm doing it. But they have no idea. People are so in their own worlds, they have no idea what you're doing. They just go, that was a really great conversation. I talked all about my muscles and you listened to it. It's like, that's right, I did. Good, all right, so let's then take this to the next level. So if we're matching people physically and vocally, we can start to match their physiology, their tonality, and their actual words. If you want to get super good at this, match their breathing. When they're talking, they're breathing out. And if you breathe in sync with someone, they don't know why, they just think you are the elixir from God. So this you can take this to many different levels. Which brings us to the next part, which is qualifying questions. And this is a really challenging thing because do you match people who are in distress? If they're shouting or screaming or crying, would you match them? It's a really tricky one, isn't it? Pardon? That's right. Yes. Are you a doctor? Yes, you can match them just to show that you care. Have you ever been really worked up and someone says, calm down? And you're like, I'll show you calm. Yeah, so you never want to be, but you do, there's an example of this hostage negotiator and this kidnapper had 30 people in a bank, and he's on the phone. He's like, I want a bulletproof van, and I want it to take me to the airport. And at the airport, I want a private jet. Now, how did he jump on the phone? He said, you want a bulletproof van? Is that what you want? Yeah, I want a bulletproof van. And you want it to take you to the airport. JFK? Yeah, to JFK. Okay. And then at the airport, do you want a private jet, or would you mind, is it 100 million you want on it, or is it 150? And he goes, no, 500 million. Okay. So they meet them where they're at, but with empathy, and then they bring them back down. But there's two worlds of thought of this, because if you talk to Chris Voss, we'll get to this in just a second, he says that always using the late night radio DJ voice is appropriate. And he's a hostage negotiator who wrote Never Split the Difference, which is a great book. Very, very fun. But what we know is that when you are with people and you're building rapport with them, the top salespeople, and it's really interesting to see salespeople because we're always selling our ideas or getting someone to do what we're asking of them, they only speak 46% of the time. The other person speaks 54% of the time. So you want to switch speakers a lot when you're talking. Never, ever, ever do you get up to deliver a presentation. Start it and then stop it 45 minutes or an hour later. I remember speaking to this crew in London, and they said, we knew we'd lost them after 5 minutes, but we just kept going. I said, what, for an hour and a half? And they went... So a presentation is just like a conversation. It's a heightened conversation, but it's still a conversation. So always look at switching. And the way we can do that, as Chris Voss says, slow it down. Use your late night radio DJ voice and use simple language in short sentences. What's the ideal sentence length? How many words? Close, yeah. 8 words. I met this British, he was like a wordsmith over in London, and he had brown leather shoes and blue jeans that were rolled up at the ends and a white Bonds t-shirt and a brown leather satchel and round glasses. And he said, hello, Arabella, how has your first week in London been? And I said, oh, it's been great, it's been intense, but it's been a lot of fun. And he said, fun? My colleague said, yeah, she said fun. Why do you question whether she had fun or not? And he goes, oh no, I just repeat the last word of anyone's phrase. And it works, it really, really works. So repeating the last words, and Chris Voss says you should repeat the last 3 words of anyone's phrase. Now, I used to say it doesn't matter, you can repeat the main words, but if someone says, look, we're going through a really challenging time, we might have to split the company up and focus on our best product, and you go split the company up, well, they're already on to best product. So you go, best product. So these are the words that you can use to ask the best questions. These are from the US in a group that I've been working with recently. And the first one is repeating the last few words of anyone's phrase, because that's where their mind is at that moment. So they say, we're just finding it really challenging. You go, finding it really challenging. And they go, yeah, it's just that we've got so much work on and we just don't have enough resources. And you go, not enough resources. And they say, yeah, well, we've got the... And they just... Now, practice this when it's not important so that you don't feel embarrassed when you... Then you can use questions, which is more of a statement, but tell me more. Help me to understand. Walk me through what you've done so far. How's this working for you? What do you mean by that? And so you ask these questions. What have you tried so far? Really? How so? Tell me more. And this is what I did with Mr. Muscle. I was like, help me to understand. Walk me through what you've done. Tell me more. And he's just like, blah. And people are so keen to share what is important to them. And then you make nice. We don't do this in Australia. It's a very American term, make nice. But you know, thank you for sharing. That sounds really challenging. I get it. I hear you. Yeah, absolutely. I get that. We don't do this enough. And then we want to do something very complicated called a summary rephrase. And that is where you summarize everything they've said. And this is when you're looking at, it sounds like you're feeling X because of Y. It sounds like you're feeling angry, frustrated, concerned, worried, scared because You haven't got the resources to solve this imminent problem. And people have two responses when you use a summary rephrase. They'll either say, that's right, which confirms you're on the right track, or no. And both are good. Because when people say no, they feel in control. They feel like they have autonomy. Does anyone here live in a house or a semi? Anyone live? Yes? Do you get those phone calls where they say, do you pay the electricity in your house? And you say, yes. And they say, are you finding the electricity bill is going up? And you say, yes. And they say, do you think are you concerned it'll go up again? You say, yes. And all you want to say is no, because you feel out of control. What is much better is if they said something like, do you want to pay more for your electricity? And I'd say no. And they'd say, nor should you. Here is a way to help you. So people feel much stronger when they're able to say no. No is not a scary word. And if you've been saying something and you say, it seems like this is an issue, and they say no, then you say, oh, help me to understand. Walk me through. Tell me more. I'll just finish with one story about just what happened recently. I was working with a lot of men in construction. There was like 100 people on site and they were all shouting at each other. So I started calling all of my friends, clinical psychiatrists. I said, what do you do when someone's actually losing it? You know, when they're at that point where they're no longer rational and they're shouting. And people gave me all sorts of advice. And then I thought, I'm going to talk to Catherine across the road, because Catherine across the road is a prison guard. And she's a strong build, and she's got this brown curly hair. And I said to her, hey, Catherine, can I come and have a chat to you about what you do with prisoners when they're losing it? She goes, oh, all right, come at 2 o'clock. I was like, all right. So I came at 2 o'clock with freshly baked scones and cream and jam. And I said, hi, Catherine. And she goes, oh, no, I don't need any of that. And I went, okay, no worries. So I'm on that aside. I said, so tell me, what do you do when, you know, with these prisoners? And she goes, oh, they're really soft these days. They've become a lot more sensitive. And she said, they really open up. And I was like, what, they tell you their problems? She goes, no, they cut themselves across here so they can go to hospital and get drugs. I was like, okay. But she worked for 3 years. She's been in prisons for 25 years. The first 3 she worked with women. She said, I'll never do it again. She said, I got attacked by a mango. I was like, a what? That pip, I suppose, can be quite... I said, what do you do when the prisoners are actually losing it? She goes, I don't really know what I do. I said, you must be doing something, because you've been doing it for so long. And she said, let's role play. And I was like, what, you want me to be the prisoner? She said, yeah, you be the prisoner and I'll be the prison guard. And I was like, okay. So I stood in her driveway and I was like, and I was hitting the fence going, no one's getting my drugs, no one's helping me, And you know what she did? She bent her knees, she looked up at me, she's like, hey, what do you need? You can tell me. What do you need? And I was like, hey, that's a really good question. She goes, no, they're way worse than that. But what you realize is that everyone is trying to get their needs met. They may not be doing very well, but they're doing the best they can with the resources they have available. So what you need to do is self-regulate, take long, slow, deep breaths, and ask them. Thank you so much for having me. It's been great being with you all this evening. Thank you for having me, Startmate.
I'm going to kill 30 seconds while Mia makes it from the back of the room so we don't have an awkward pause. And hand over.
Chose the perfect time for a bathroom break. How fucking good was that? Thank you, Arabella, so much. That was so funny and so interesting. And Kel and I were both at the back being like, oh, we need to take notes and just try and remember everything that you said.
If anyone wants to date a bodybuilder, can I put this? If you do want to watch videos on what we've just done, I do have an app called Communication Guru. And it's got 5 to 8 minute videos. And I've just put up some free videos for you talking about difficult questions, which we didn't get to tonight. So if you want to, there we go, dun, dun, dun. If you want to download Communication Guru, it's in your app store, and then you can get access to the free questions that I've made available for you tonight.
Okay, amazing. Arabella, again, thank you so much. So a couple of very quick housekeeping bits from me. Firstly, when you do leave, it'd be great if you can take your rubbish and also any glasses back to the bar. That would be fab. As a reminder, I'm Mia, I work at Startmate and I run the Women Fellowship, and applications are still open for another week. So if anyone is interested in exploring a career in startups, please apply or find me after. I'd love to chat. We're now going to move on to speed friending for the next half hour or so, which is going to be super fun. Totally optional. If people want to just chill, you're welcome to grab another drink at the bar. We'll give everyone a couple of minutes, and for anyone who does want to stay, it's going to be one-to-one speed friending. I'm going to be running it. It's going to be a bit silly and a bit fun, and hopefully you'll be diving deep with some fun questions as well. So we'll start in a minute or two, but if anyone does want to step out and just take a breather, get a drink, feel free. But if you want to stay, it's going to be real fun.